Hello, I'm Nicole Travillas-Fravel. Welcome to Wildwood Teaching. Now, every so often, I send out a survey to people asking, what about outdoor teaching, nature-based learning, do you need help with? And Rita responded with the idea that she does an outdoor story time within the library and wanting to know how to gain and keep children's attention with all of the distractions going on outside. Um, and whether you are teaching inside or outside, distractions are just a way of life with preschoolers and toddlers. But we are going to spend the next 3 or 4 weeks looking at different ways of doing a story time outside, of doing some group sessions outside, and how you keep attention. I do want to say that sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes you want to let the attention wander. So, for example, for the past week or so, we have had a woodpecker visiting us somewhere in the morning. We haven't found it yet. Woodpeckers are much smaller, at least the ones here, much smaller than what you think of if you're used to the cartoon version of Woody Woodpecker. But woodpeckers are pretty small, and especially here in the early spring, blending in with the brown surroundings, so they are difficult to spot. And we are a nature school, so when we hear a woodpecker and somebody says, "Oh, there's the woodpecker," we do stop our group time and try to search for, can we look toward the sound? So there are times when it's okay for your child's attention to wander to something that's interesting in the moment. And we are all about moments in Forest School. However, there are also times when you want to hold their attention. Now, we operate from a child-led principle, which means that we want children to have the option of participating, but we want to make it an enticing option for them. So one of the ways you garner attention is to make what you're doing interesting and relevant to the children. And I'm going to talk very briefly about some interactivity today. And in the next couple of sessions, we'll talk a little bit more about interactivity and making things relevant. So right today, I'm just going to go through very briefly our morning group time routine. I call it a group time as opposed to a circle time because I've learned that circle time is a specific thing. And it's not what we do. We do a group morning meeting together. And we always start our morning meeting by welcoming everybody to our school that day. And this kind of signals to everybody that our group time is about to begin, lets people clean up what they're doing, come to join the group. Also very important to greet everybody by name. And there's always a chance for movement within our hello song. So one thing we do is we do, "Hello, everybody. We're glad to have you here. Hello, everybody. We're glad to have you here. Hello to Nicole. We're glad to have you here." And then we've set up some sort of parameters for what a child is going to do when we say hello to them. So one thing might be that they're just going to do a movement that everybody else can copy. Another option is that they might pop up and say something that they like, right? I like ice cream. And then everybody else who likes that gets to pop up and say, "Me too." They might pop up and say something that they don't like. They might say something that they are grateful for. And this is a parameter that we've set up ahead of time, that everybody's doing the same theme. Everybody's doing something they're grateful for that day. Sometimes we we clap and we sing. Sometimes it's just hello to Nicole, hello to Sarah, hello to Joshua. We're glad to have you here. And that just gets everybody here, everybody in the mood. Another thing I learned, I don't know where I picked it up, was to have children always bring something to group time. So if we are in the forest, that might be as they are coming to group time, they're going to pick 1, 2 interesting things that they see in the forest today, and they're going to bring that to group time. And we'll start our group time discussing what they found interesting in the forest today. It might mean at the beginning of the year, we have photographs of different things we might do that day. And these are photographs of things that we are going to do that day. Each child chooses a photograph, and then we have a clothesline hanging between trees, and we set up the order of our schedule for the day, so that everybody knows what to expect. Later in the year, these pictures just go up at a time, and children can consult them and see, oh, we're going to do our sit spots today. Another option is we might have something hanging from the trees. We might have various emojis hanging from the trees. They could be numbers, they could be letters. Pick something. And then each child has their photograph on a paper clip. My photograph I'm showing you the back of it, so I'm not revealing the child. And then they clip their photograph on the emoji that they're feeling, on the number that they're thinking about today, the letter, whatever it is. And then you start your group time with a discussion, a check-in. I noticed that, Sarah, you're excited today. What are you excited about? And you encourage the children to respond to each other. So you're having a conversation and you're giving them lots of time to speak, to listen, to add vocabulary, to process language. And to me, this is the most important part of our morning meeting, that we're creating that community and we're giving children a time to talk, so that we teachers can see where they're coming from, so that they can learn from each other. Then another possibility for something that they can bring to the group is sometimes we do a check-in question. It can be a question that comes from the children. It can be a question that comes from the teacher, and children have little names that they glue on the chart or the graph or the Venn diagram, whatever we have. And then we talk again. What did you learn about the people in Wildwood Nature School? And that's the basis of our discussion for that day. At that point, you might want to do a quick song, a quick movement right after your check-in, just to get people moving, get that energy going. And then we usually transition into a story. We transition into it by some sort of breath work, a calming activity, right? We just moved around. We just had a big discussion. Now we're moving into listening. So let's take some deep breaths while we trace in and out of our fingers, just to prepare our bodies and our minds, right? And this leads into your activity, but it also means that every day you're practicing a calming breathing activity that children can use when they get frustrated at a different point in the day, when they get overexcited at a different point of the day. And then we have a story It's always a story, not always a book. And we will get into that portion next week and the week after when we talk about alternatives to books. When you are telling a story in a group setting. And then after our story, we usually lead into some sort of group experience. And that's based on any reflections that we've done in our floor book and ideas that the children have come up with. And so, for example, this group experience, the children in the fall were very into fungi. And so we had photographed all of the fungi that we could find in our forest, so we could collect it without touching it, without picking it. And then kind of our group experience that day was to try to identify our fungi. And so we had guidebooks out, we had all of the photographs out so that the children could match them to the guidebooks. And when they found one, glue them in, show a teacher, the teacher could help them put the labels on. And sometimes that group experience is something different, like a science experiment. It just kind of depends on what we've decided in the previous day, the previous week of what we're working toward in our floor book. Sometimes it's an art activity, sometimes it's a math game. It really just depends on what we've decided we've been working on. And now everybody finishes at their own pace. So somebody might be super interested in identifying all of the fungi and get photograph after photograph after photograph and keep looking. Some children, may kind of stare at a photograph of the fungi, flip through the page a little bit, decide that that's not for them that day. And so as children finish up on their own timetable, they head off and choose their own activity to play in the yard. So something that maybe is a provocation that we've set up, or maybe they're doing some gross motor activity with a ball. Maybe they're heading into the sandbox. Maybe they're headed toward the water mud kitchen. And then we will revisit, like as the group has finished something, if we put it in our floor book, we'll revisit it later in the day or the following day. Here are all of the fungi that we identified. And so that's it. That's quick and dirty, our morning meeting routine. The idea is to make it meaningful for children, relevant to them, give children lots of opportunity to participate, to add themselves to it, that your group time is not them sitting still and listening to a lecture. Again, ideas for movement within it. And if you keep those principles in mind, you should be successful whether you are inside or outside with your group time. Like I said, this is a first video in a series. And so next week, we are going to talk about alternatives to books in that story section of your morning meeting. And I will see you there.